uninspired and writer's block and all that terrible stuff, the answer for that is you go for a walk, you get a new album, go have conversation, get yourself something tasty to drink. Vary it up is what I'm saying. Like, I feel like people get stuck in patterns. And what we all want is a taste of the timeless. Christmas morning is timeless. Walking at night, seeing something beautiful like a shooting star, that's timeless. You'll remember when that happened to you. So you want to try to make things a little special. You want to seek that inspiration. It's very important.
Welcome to What Matters Media Barber Chair Talks, where we strive to inspire people to be better people. I'm Matthew Baker, and today we talk to Ricky Olkus. Ricky is an author, and he is also a writer and overall creative. It was cool just having a conversation about wonder and how we keep our mind open to things that are kind of scary sometimes. If you want to join in, we kind of just took his hair down real short. It was a big transformation. I cleaned up his beard and got him all looking good. Thanks for joining us on What Matters Media, where you matter. Thanks. How's it going, Ricky?
Fantastic, man.
Yeah.
Doing a lot of writing, a lot of creative activity lately. Given the nature of the world, the stressful nature of all that's been going on lately, I find that it's been helping me.
That's awesome.
Like, I would recommend it. I would recommend what I do to anyone.
Yeah. Yeah, I met you, Ricky. You're cousins with my friend Joey, who I met in high school.
Yep.
And you moved into the area. And yeah, so I would just kind of go meet you after I went rock climbing with my friend Joey.
Yeah.
And then we had a lot of really fun conversations on all different topics. But I always appreciated your conversations, your authenticity, and just the way you go about things. So
thank you.
One thing is you're helping me, encouraging me in the book that I've been writing, fiction book.
No, I read that manuscript based on what you had so far, and I found it to be very impressive. You're a talented dude, man. I mean, you have a voice. The whole key behind it is there a voice on the page? Yeah. Does the text feel like it's living? And your stuff does. And given the subject matter, that's no small feat or effort because not everyone can do that. Yeah. The nature of that fiction. I'd love to know where you are with that manuscript.
Yeah, so I haven't gone too much further than what I've gone with before, last time we talked.
Sure.
But I was kind of putting it on hold on purpose.
Sure.
I moved into my own place at it's a little cabin in the woods.
Cool.
And I figured it would give some good inspiration for the theme. But yeah. And
hopefully it's more Jack Kerouac and less Evil Dead.
There we go.
Yeah. Like Jack Kerouac had a nice cabin in the woods where he did a lot of writing and you know, but the other one's not so good. It's peaceful and nice there, I'm sure.
Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very, very good.
So, Ricky, the reason we talked about writing is that you're an author.
That is correct.
How did you get into writing, and what kind of started inspiring you?
Okay, so I have 6 books in print on Amazon. I have a bunch of others that are floating around waiting for edit because it's expensive work.
Oh, for sure.
Getting to your question, I have always felt different, burdened with a unique perspective in life. Strange things always showed up, and like in my thoughts, as I was fading off to sleep, I would think about oddities and strange occurrences, and there's something about that, the nature of a cosmic journalist. That you're seeing strange things that other people don't see, or experiencing things that other people don't experience. So ultimately it led me to poetry. I was a big fan of stand-up comedy. When I was in first grade, they asked you what you wanted to be. People said policeman, fireman, doctor, lawyer. I said stand-up comedian. Yeah. And I was the only one in my school that said that. Because the nature of stand-up is it's storytelling with a humorous bend.
For sure.
When you affect people, when you have an audience and you can affect them with timing and with narrative, there's something greatly meaningful about that. It takes them out of temporality and into a timeless state. Like when you're laughing, you're not thinking about next Thursday.
Yeah,
you're thinking in a timeless mode. So as poetry went along, eventually became enamored with stories. I tried writing short stories, but they were all not worth it. The fire claimed them. Oh, wow. But it took me years to write short stories that I thought were any good and that I valued. And
why do you think you didn't find value in them?
Because they were lousy. You have to have a creative obsession.
Yeah.
That's what I call it. People say, oh, I'm a creative, or he's a creative fellow. But when you're a creative obsessor, people like have a dark connotation with obsession, and an unexamined obsession can be a dangerous thing, as my with would tell anyone. But when it comes to creative obsession, it's done almost nothing but good for me. When I was younger, I think a lot of the mystery of life might be derived from some sort of state of trauma that fell on me when I was younger. And therefore, I didn't see things like other people saw them. And what I needed was to disengage from those negative thoughts and intrusive thoughts.
Yeah.
And because you get obsessed with that negativity. And I find that extreme people will be obsessed over anything. So the best thing to do is focus your OCD, because I have OCD. So you have to focus your OCD and weaponize it. And put it into a direction, an angle that will produce rather than detract from your life. So I found a great solace in writing books.
Yeah.
Because you're using your time to an end. It's giving you purpose. And, you know, you get a result. You get a product.
For sure.
So once I figured that out, that became my inspiration. So I wasn't just a poet anymore. Now I was an author, you see?
Yeah, that is neat.
Yeah, it is. It's been great.
And so would you say that that was kind of an escape for you to writing? Or what was it? How did it kind of develop in you that you were like, no, I don't want to just be someone who tells stories or is funny or these things. I want to be someone who actually is an author and actually pursue authorship.
That's a wonderful segue. So what it boils down to is it started off as escape and escapism. Because escapism, I think, is what gets all authors moving. You leave your own life, your ego behind, yourself, and you go in search of a topic. If you're a reporter or a poet, it's the same thing. But for me, it turned into a spiritual practice. Because I feel that the creative force is a transcendent force. And there are many such forces in life. There's truth, there's precision, there's forgiveness. Those are transcendent forces that I feel that mankind doesn't have enough of anymore. And so when I'm writing, I'm definitely escaping in the lower nature, because this world is terrifying sometimes. But in the higher nature, I'm doing it to create and express and actualize art, so that someone might gain enjoyment from that. And the networking of minds.
Yeah.
If you can inspire people need to be inspired, Matt.
Yeah.
It's not enough that you have to just make bread and cash your paycheck. You have to have a reason to get out of bed, to get out of your driveway in the morning. And inspiration to me is the highest coin in the realm. If I can get an idea for a story, then I have a sense of satisfaction.
For sure.
And it's episodic. Planning a story, getting the muse for a story, planning it, writing it, and then having it and realizing I can publish this is a source of satisfaction. And a lot of people are like, I can't get no satisfaction. They move through life and they're basically
There's a famous person that might have said that.
There might have said that. I'm not sure. Look, it may be the Bard. We'll call it the Bard.
Yeah.
But what it boils down to is if you can inspire yourself, then you don't need overbearing facets of culture to do it for you. And that's what I feel is so important and what people can gain from it. You know what I mean? It's inspiration itself that inspires me. I'm looking for it everywhere, even here.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
What would you say kind of inspires you? Or what's a place like when you're writing that you're like, I need inspiration? Where's the kind of some of the first things that you go to?
Well, I will go watch something on, I do a lot of stuff on YouTube. I read a lot.
Yeah.
I'm interested in various aspects of cryptozoology and anomalous reports throughout the world. I don't want to say that I'm an occultist or a paranormal investigator, but I find that if you read all sorts of strange things that you tend to learn, like especially if you're a fiction writer, you can find inspiration almost anywhere, but you don't ever want to be like, oh, that's nonsense. The reductive mindset is not profitable to the creative because the creative is, cause I can't tell you how many times I read on the writing community on various platforms, I don't know what to write. I wish I knew what to write. And it makes me want to shriek because there's so much out there that's mysterious in today, tomorrow, and yesterday in history. All you have to do is take a little look and you'll see all kinds of strange things that and then eventually you'll get an idea if you've read enough. What I call a muse flash will bolt in front of you. And then as a creative obsessor, you'll have no choice but to write it down. And the more you reward that part of your brain, the more it happens. It's like anything else. The neural network that you're establishing through your habits and behaviors, it just makes it so that it's more and more accessible, what you want. So you reward that part of your brain for its inquiry, for its curiosity.
Yeah.
So I would just read some cool stuff. Any question that you ever have, do people really see Bigfoot? What are UAPs? Why is Congress talking about them? Those are mysterious questions. If you just automatically go, whatever, that's rubbish, you're not going to be inspired because you think you know it all.
Yeah.
And there's clearly, I'm not saying I believe one way or the other. I'm saying there's clearly a mystery there. There's a singularity. So you don't want to just go, no, questions. I don't like questions. That's not profitable for the creative.
Yeah.
Yeah,
even taking some of the questions and using them to create your own scenarios or
that's precisely
processes.
That's precisely what I'm getting at. Yeah, because again, that inspiration is key, not just for escapism, but for your own prospects. I have enough writing right now where if I wrote full time, it would take me 6 years to write all the books that I have outlined.
Yeah.
So I have thank God, I have no shortage of inspiration at the moment.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So how would you kind of tie in, so you're a person who has all these kind of different avenues of creativity and all these different ways that you like to share them, and tell us a little bit about how these avenues that you've taken in your past.
Well, when it comes to writing, I was a poet. I have a poetry book. Once that happened, then in 2011, I showed up at this thing back in Jersey called the Pitchapalooza. And it was 3 New York Times best-selling authors, and you had a 60-second elevator pitch for a book that you were supposed to give to them. And they were documenting it, and it was in this bookstore, which is now defunct in New Jersey. So I gave my pitch, and they were like, wow, that was a really cool story. We're not going to publish it or anything, but we think it's awesome. So once they said that, I was like, well, I don't need them to tell me that.
Yeah.
And then I just started writing, and I didn't really know what I was doing, but I wrote 1 book, then I wrote 2, and then 3, 4, and I just kept writing, and each one got better and better. Now I'm in the process of rewriting those books. I just finished the first one, and it was very, very satisfying. It's about 100,000 words, and I have like 6 or 7 of those that I could write that I know what the stories are.
Yeah.
So it'll end up being quite a lot of words, a whole series. Nowadays, I'm turning my attention to, I have an X account, Mount Timeless Productions.
Oh, cool. I'll have to throw that link in there.
Yeah, and we have a contest that we're starting on there. I work on there with a few fellow creatives, and we're doing what's called the Galactic Epic Contest.
Oh, nice.
So I'm a land surveyor. That's how I make my money. I'm retired out of the field, but I still do CAD tech work for my company in Jersey. Now, I've learned the benefit of real estate surveying and inspiration. You see, like, because I did thousands of jobs for real estate and construction during my career.
Wow.
So you get a huge kaleidoscope of real estate. And you see things, they start to look the same. Like your pattern recognition center is like, oh, I feel like I've been in this backyard before.
Yeah.
And then you see things that you've, like beautiful landscapes or cityscapes that you've never seen before. And my dreams, as a consequence, are quite potent because I have all that data in there. Yeah. So it feels like when I'm walking through a city in a dream, it's a very potent experience. Yeah. Because of the amount of detail that's there. That same principle occurs when you read lots. Yeah. To gain voice fulfillment, poetic voice fulfillment, you have to read and read and read. Yeah. And you have a voice, Matt. Your manuscript drips with it. You know, thanks, man. It's a great presence on the page. So I think that anyone who needs to outline a book of fiction needs to have a map. I believe in fantasy cartography as a source of inspiration.
Yeah, I've seen some cool maps that you've created.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah. So we're doing a galactic map with this first contest, which is like a rudimentary spiral. You could draw a spiral in a circle with a dot in the middle, and that's your galaxy. And then you draw it on graph paper. And then once you populate that and you determine its scale, like each little block is like 7,000 plus light years. Yeah. Then you can create a bunch of different settings, and all those settings have a forced interaction because they all occur on the same map. So there's, terrible parts of the galaxy, there's heavenly parts of the galaxy, there's adventurous. And it's the same thing with star systems or planetary maps. So we're trying to push that contest right now. That's cool. Anyone who would like to join, who wants to write a 4,000 word to 10,000 word story and have a bunch of fun, can do that.
That's awesome.
And you can set the world aside for a moment. It'll be there when you're done, I promise you. Yeah. People always say, well, you're just running away from reality. And I say, no, reality is going to be there. There's no running away from it. You have to take a break from it, though, every once in a while. I'm sure you've heard that we have an epidemic of anxiety in this country. Yeah. The reason that is because no one knows how to relax. No one knows how to step away from the mirror and disincline themselves from self. But creativity can teach you to do that. It can bring meaning to your life that you otherwise wouldn't have. And I think that that's very important.
Yeah.
You know, especially for those who are very stressed.
Yeah. So a little bit of what you shared earlier, which first of all, that's so cool to hear what you're doing with that. Because I think it's one thing to create for yourself. That's nothing wrong with it. But it's pretty cool to be in a place where you're able to help others find freedom and find creativity and find joy in something that you've found such a freedom and joy in. So that's really cool.
Yeah, you see exactly what it is that I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
I mean, some people won't have patience for it. They'll think it's just nonsense, but then they can go find their own happiness, their own satisfaction elsewhere. But those people who are looking for something unorthodox, something that's a little odd, a little weird, they're for me and I'm for them.
Yeah.
You know?
Cool.
Yeah.
Something I'd love to talk about that just in you sharing some of the stories you're rewriting. Some of those, I'm not sure if they're different than what we've talked about in the past. But some of those you're rewriting because the transcripts are lost, right?
Well, they are imperfect. When I first started writing in 2011, as I said previously, I didn't really know what I was doing.
Yeah.
But I kept great records. So because I was like, I'm just going to keep writing until I have a voice and until what I'm doing is justified. I didn't give up. You can't give up. It has to be a dream that you're trying to see come true. You have to have goals, yes, but there has to be a dream. There has to be a timeless goal. That's what a dream is in the sense that I'm speaking. So even though I wrote those books all the way back then, I knew that I was going to eventually have the ability to rewrite them and complete them. That's what I'm talking about is the Afternity series. I have 2 of them up already, Book of Masroth 1, Book of Masroth 2. And that's a cosmic fantasy. It's very, very strange. It has elements of high fantasy, science fiction, and cosmic horror involved.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. There was this little boy named Masroth who was not quite human. They called him the boy creature. He has glowing green eyes and is possessed by a viral computer. They say the future of artificial intelligence will eventually move over to organic processing because the nature of an organic medium is more, it's less restrictive. There's all these different regulations as far as processors, how far it can go. But that child Masroth represented an experiment that they were doing to make the next level of AI. So that's the Afternity stuff. And then I have this Galaxy 8902, which is a whole other universe.
Nice.
Nidhogg Chronicles. I have a cyberpunk book.
That's cool.
All that stuff is different instruments in the symphony of my obsession.
Yeah.
Whatever it is that my muse wants, I just go and I start writing that.
Yeah.
So yeah. And it's not only enjoyable, but it helps pass the time, keeps you out of trouble. Like it's better to be there than a saloon. Not that I'm against saloons, but you know, you can get into trouble in a saloon. You write a book, you can get into trouble too, but it's a different kind of trouble.
Yeah.
So you got to own what you write. Like you got to own your deeds. You got to own what it is that you write on paper just as much. So there is accountability, but it's light, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
It's not terrible most of the time.
Yeah. I love how in our conversations, Ricky, we can talk about the possibility, or not the possibility, but the conversation of different celestial beings out there, but then we can also talk about Jesus. And
I'm a believer in the risen Jesus.
Yeah.
Yes, no doubt about it.
Yeah. And that's like something important to my life, but it's also cool to have just a view of things with mystery.
Yes.
But to have also just like the faith that you stick to as well. How do you how would you say, like, for someone who loves the mystery, who loves the story, how do you kind of anchor your faith?
That's a very, very good question. I seek the mysteries of the elder world. Mm-hmm. There are plenty of them, and they allow you to unpack world building so your fantasy settings become more enriched. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, how did the wise men find baby Jesus? They followed a star, right? Mm-hmm. That's what the story says.
Yeah.
Well, one of the reasons they knew to follow that star is because they knew the stars that were there and the stars that weren't. Uh-huh. That's because they studied the zodiac. Uh-huh. Now, the zodiac has an underpinning when it comes to all the giant megalith monuments. Now, I'm referring specifically, we'll do one everyone knows. There are plenty, though. We can go all over the world and find this. Mm-hmm. But the pyramids at Giza, they are aligned to Orion's belt. Mm-hmm. And people, the minute you say zodiac, people, oh, that's astrology. No, were the wise men astrologers? They were, but they were also faithful. Mm-hmm. They wanted to go see the newborn king.
Yeah.
So they used their wisdom because they're mm-hmm. wise men. Mm-hmm. Their literal names are what they are. Mm-hmm. So you can't say they were dummies. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they knew things that people didn't know. Mm-hmm. So they knew that if they followed Orion's belt and they journeyed into the west, they would eventually find those pyramids, and they would align themselves with other astrological sites. When you know that they built all of these great structures, like the Sphinx, everybody thinks the Sphinx has a human face. Well, a long time ago, it had the face of a lion because it was aligned with the constellation Leo. Mm-hmm. So whoever wanted to use it as a navigation point could do so. Mm-hmm. So when I learned that the wise men used those things to find our Lord when he was a baby, mm-hmm. I was astonished, because I have been to Bible study after Bible study my whole life, and none of those great wise Christian men knew that. They didn't know they just said, well, you know, they saw a star. It's like, yeah, but if you don't know the precise orientation of all the other stars, mm-hmm. then you don't know the new star from the old star. Mm-hmm. You're not wise, in mm-hmm. other words. All of this is education, mm-hmm. and then inspiration from what you learn. Mm-hmm. So it's self-improvement. And you're not focused on your inadequacies or something that you're bent out of shape about. Instead, you're focused on learning and getting inspired instead of being uninspired. Mm-hmm. Uninspired and writer's block and all that terrible stuff. The answer for that is you go for a walk. You get a new album. Mm-hmm. Read a book you've never read before. Mm-hmm. Go have conversation. Get yourself something tasty to drink. Mm-hmm. All those things are important. Just vary it up is mm-hmm. what I'm saying. I feel like people get stuck in patterns. Yeah. And what we all want is a taste of the timeless. Mm-hmm. Christmas morning is timeless. Mm-hmm. Walking at night, seeing something beautiful like a shooting star, mm-hmm. that's timeless. You'll remember when that happened to you. It's not mm-hmm. like the endless seconds of the endless days. Mm-hmm. So you want to try to make things a little special. You want to seek that inspiration. It's very mm-hmm. important, mm-hmm. you know? Yeah.
And I love that, what some people might be afraid of with some of the mystery stuff is, I'm sure me and you have varying belief systems on some of the
yes.
more deep thoughts of different places. Different things.
Certainly, yeah.
But when we realize that none of us are really on the nuanced things, none of us are really that sure about those things. But there's things that always will be true.
Yes,
and it's like
that's the thing.
There's faith, there's hope, there's love. You know,
absolutely.
And those sort of things, and the way God relates to each and every one of us is different.
Yes.
But the fact that we all can experience Him through His, through His Son Jesus, and
absolutely,
that it's just crazy to think of how some people turn it off because someone sounds a little different than what they think, but when you actually start to listen to the people around you and the things that are happening around you, I like that you embrace the mystery for so many different reasons, and you utilize it instead of getting letting confusion or questions discourage you. You let it inspire you, which is super fun.
Well, yeah. Part of the thing why people, like, you'll hear someone on the radio say something and you'll want to turn it off. That's hysteria, I call it hysteria culture. I'm not going to get very far into it, but you have to set aside some of your feelings and you have to remember to think. If someone says something that's conflicting with your worldview or your theology, you have to be patient and you have to kind of find out why they're saying that. You can't automatically assume that they're your foe.
Yeah.
That's not what Jesus wants. He called people out too, but he did it from a position of righteousness. And he also wasn't very, very hysterical. He was explaining, well, the reason you're doing this is because you don't see. Those who are blind and those who have sight, and the ones who think they can see and the ones that clearly cannot, they're trapped within themselves. So they're blind to all else. Their focus is the mirror, so they don't see everything else that's going on. Jesus had no mirror. So to me, that's very important. Ego side, not my will, but your will be done.
Yeah.
So instead of going out and obsessing over other people and causing trouble, you should turn your obsession to the spiritual and, in my eyes, to the creative. Because you don't hurt people that way. If you write stories, you're just trying to explore storycraft and the hero's journey. If you go out and you cause trouble and you're a gossip and you're violent or you're being nasty to people, that doesn't serve Jesus. It doesn't serve yourself. So it's best to be avoided. That's why one of the reasons I advocate the transcendent force of creativity. Because it's more harmless than other things. There's no riots at book signings. There are riots at soccer games, and there are sometimes riots at other, like, rock concerts and things. But when there's a book signing, things are normally pretty quiet. So I like that. I would rather it be that way than getting people worked up.
Yeah. We're getting towards the point where we gotta not talk as much because we're working on the beard. But I would love to hear, Ricky, what advice would you give concerning some of the stuff we talked and just in general in life?
Sure.
What's some advice you would give to your 14-year-old self?
Oh, that's a wonderful question. Probably a cuff on the side of the head, first and foremost. I wasn't doing well at 14. I had a lot of unique perspectives that were not being questioned, a lot of general strangeness. But what I would say to myself is, don't be so controlling. Don't be so trapped in circumstances, and read more. Like, read as much as you can read. Like, read more than you talk. It's not that you can't get cool stuff from someone at that age. It's just, it's much better for them to answer their own questions. I had a terrible philosophy back then, which is that thinking is detrimental because it leads to pain. So I avoided thought, I avoided exploring, and I dulled my curiosity. And it took me a long time to climb out of that. I don't know that I was necessarily in an environment that fostered those positive things of curiosity anyway. I was told a lot more of what to think than how to think. And I think it's important for people to learn how to think. And they don't really teach you that anymore. That's not the aim that I see. So you got to learn how to think, and you got to learn how to feel less. Like, we're all going to feel. I'm not saying you should be like Mr. Spock or whatever, because that's not possible. But what I am saying is watch your emotions and how they rule you. Because when I was 14, I was on an emotional roller coaster, and I was aimless. So once you learn that stuff and you figure that stuff out, then your life starts to move in a direction. So that's what I would tell my 14-year-old self, and any 14-year-olds that are out there. Read a lot, question a lot. Don't pretend that you know everything, because that's nonsense. You could be 3 times that age and not know anything. So that's a big deal. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Thanks, Ricky.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Not that I'm Mr. Wisdom or anything, but if I had a time machine, that's what I would do. I'd be like, could you stop, Ricky? Like, let's do this instead. How about that? You know?
That's great.
Yeah.